Welcome to another episode of The Vegan Pulse. I am your host, Nancy Arenas. Today, my guest is Peter Egan. Peter is a British television actor, best known for his roles in Ever Decreasing Circles and Downton Abbey. Peter had been vegetarian for 8 years before going vegan in 2016 after participating in Veganuary. Since then, he has been an outspoken animal rights advocate, campaigning tirelessly for the animals and supporting many causes and organizations. Stick around. I want to introduce him to you. Hi, Peter. How are you?
Hi, Nancy. I'm very well. Thank you. Very well. Nice to be on your show.
Oh, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show. And I know that you are familiar to many people. And I wondered if you might share your journey into veganism.
It started specifically, I watched a film called Earthlings, which is voiced by Joaquin Phoenix, as you probably know. And Earthlings is a extraordinary documentary which deals with all species involved with intensive animal agriculture. So it's basically about the slaughter of animals. And I watched it about 12 years ago, and I was so upset by what I saw, by the cruelty, by the lack of any kind of kindness or empathy for these wonderful creatures that as soon as I finished watching it, I was watching it in the kitchen of our house in London when we lived in London. My wife came in and she thought I'd had a heart attack or something because I could hardly speak. And she said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "I've just watched this extraordinary film and I'm never going to eat meat again." And I haven't eaten meat since then. And that started my journey. Thank you. And that started it. And I then progressed from that and then learned, once you open one door into this area, it leads to many other doors. And I then went into the door marked fish and the door marked dairy. And so over the next couple of years, I took them all out. So I've been a vegan proper, for want of a better image, for the last 9 years, basically. And I don't regret a single thing. The only thing I'm sad about is that I didn't do it earlier. I wish I'd started earlier.
And do you miss the meat?
No, not at all.
I know that's like one of the misconceptions that people think. You drop it and then you're going to miss it. You're craving it and you don't.
And you don't at all, yeah. People say, well, the common thing is people say, "Oh, you're going to miss bacon. You can't live without bacon sandwiches or eggs and bacon or stuff like that, or your Sunday roast or your And no, I just regret the fact that I indulged myself with all of that for so many years of my life. And also, when you think about it, I mean, most people eat the meat they eat is disguised in one way or another. It's either covered in gravy or it's between slices of cheese and stuff in a bun or in a stew and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, you can do all of that with plant-based products. So there's nothing to miss and there's everything to gain. But one thing specifically that I really gained was my digestion became much more happy and natural. I always felt a degree of indigestion when I was eating meat, and possibly a bit of acid reflux, stuff like that. But once I cut it out after a couple of months, I sort of found my stomach saying thank you. It was really much happier being the host to my body, and everything sort of balanced out much more completely and much more comfortably. It's the best decision of my life.
And that's like you said, because now your stomach was happy because you were actually eating the food that's intended for us.
Exactly, absolutely. Well, we have the same intestine as cows, don't we? I think so. We're suited for grazing and not eating flesh.
And the other thing that you said is, which I keep trying to tell people, really, when people are eating meat and all these other animal filled products, they're always showing it, especially on TV, the oozing cheese, the sauce, They're not necessarily like right on the meat, because is, as you said, is the sauces and the, and everything that you put on top is really what we like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all the flavors and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, but specifically, I find, I have to say, what I really, really love, apart from the great, great variety of food choices, the thing that I love about being a vegan is my head is connected to my heart. There's no obstruction between what I feel and what I eat. And I daily am aware that I don't have any cruelty on my plate. And that makes me feel within myself very content and very happy.
Yeah, I've become much more happy ever since I became vegan. And it's because of what you said. All of a sudden, like, we're actually connecting to our real self.
Absolutely. How long have you been vegan?
I have been vegan about eight going on 9 years.
Oh, about the same as me. That's good.
Right. And I went vegan for the animals.
Marvelous.
And I haven't regretted it, except not doing it sooner, like you said.
Absolutely. Well, it is remarkable, isn't it? I mean, the cruelty, and also the sense that we have as human animals, that we have this dominion over all other species on this planet. And it is that aggressive sense of dominion that is making us destroy our ecosystem and destroy our planet. So opting for a plant-based lifestyle is not only healthier for us, it's healthier for the planet with whom we share. You may hear one of those species, my little dog, in the background there.
Well, and you are such a great animal activist, such a passionate person on behalf of the animals. And I want to thank you for that. And I know that you've rescued and been involved with some dogs from Bosnia.
Yeah. Yeah. I have two dogs from Sarajevo. One a German Shepherd cross, and most recently Sebastian, who is a German Shepherd cross with a Husky. He's got the most beautiful piercing blue eyes. He spent 11 years in a shelter and never got a home. And I met him 4 years ago when I was in Bosnia, and I thought that he's such a beautiful dog. He's bound to be home very quickly. He never was. And this year, very sadly, last March the 30th, my wife died. And she was a great inspiration to me in terms of animal rights and animal welfare and compassion. And I thought I would like Seb to experience some of Myra's spirit. So I rescued him in June, and it's the first home he's ever had. And he was quite reticent when he first came for the first few months. And now what I love is become very demanding. He's settled down and realized that this is where he lives, this is his home. And now he tells me when he wants things. And I just love that. It's just wonderful. So I'm really pleased. He's here. If you want to see him, I'll see if we can see him here. Just
sure.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
And that's Boo, who's just there. Hi, Boo.
Hey, Boo.
And Boo is the person who wants my attention. And you may hear, can you give me 1 second? I'm going to open the door and I may go into the garden.
Sure thing.
Yes, Seb has gone in the garden, but now Boo might be following him. Yes, they're great. I mean, for me, I don't know where I'd be this year without these wonderful creatures. They have grounded me and kept me focused, and they tell me about life. It's wonderful. They're wonderful creatures.
They do tell us about life, and they speak to us, and they have their own language. And if you actually, and not just the dogs and the cats that we have in our homes, but the cows and the pigs and the chickens and all of that. So you just have to open up your eyes and listen and feel with your heart, and you could see that they're just like us, same but different. Indeed,
totally. Funnily enough, a friend of mine, a farmer who I lives not too far from me here, I've been trying to tell him for years to stop breeding cattle for slaughter. And as he's a very small breeder, he says, no, mine is very sort of organic and careful. I said, when you take the cow into the slaughterhouse, it doesn't make any difference. It's still dreadful. And I spoke to him the other day, and he sounded changed. And I said, "What's happened?" And he said, "We just finally lost a very old cow who'd been in our family for many, many years. And he was breeding with her, but he wasn't sending her to slaughter. And she died. And he was very, very upset about that. And he noticed that the rest of the herd came and stood on the spot where she died, and they stood there for 2 days. And it's very touching to think about it. And he said, as a result of that, I have now decided that I'm not going to breed any more cattle for slaughter. It's just locked into him, the sentience and the fact that they feel like we feel. And that's what it's all about, basically. We all have the same feelings. As you say, we have a different language, but we all feel the same. We feel love and want families and want security and want happiness and want freedom. And if that's what we want, that's what we must give to all other species as well. So that's, for me, also such a driver in terms of my lifestyle and being a vegan. It's wonderful.
Wow, that just gave me some goosebumps here about that. It's just so touching. And I think that one of the things is that I think that we all have that compassion in us. We just have to awaken it. And it's like we have a lock on it. And it's the special key that opens it. Because for me, I was, until 9 years ago, 8.5 years ago, I wasn't vegan. And so, but then all of a sudden, I got the connection, which I hadn't had before.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand that. Totally understand that. It is remarkable. I mean, I started getting that connection, strangely enough, through one of my dogs, a dog I called DJ, who sadly, I lost DJ about 5 years ago, but he'd been in our lives for 16 years. And he was extraordinary. He was I used to call him a spolly, a spaniel collie cross, a spolly. And we called him DJ because he had a black coat and a white bib, and it looked like he was wearing a dinner jacket. So, and DJ was my gatekeeper, really. And when I used to come out back from filming or rehearsal or whatever, and he always used to greet me at the door, and we'd sit down together, and he felt like he was saying to me, "So how's it been today?" And so I'd talk to him, and he used to put his head to one side, and as if he was really listening. And I mean, actors love those that listen to them. So, he found his way into my heart very deeply. But he was saying other things to me about sentience and understanding, and there's more to me than you can just see if you look. And he was true. He was right. There was more. So that was the beginning also of just my sentience journey as well. And the fact, I suppose, the three things that really are the words that focus my life, which are compassion, empathy, and kindness. And I think it's very interesting, as you say, that we have to re-find our compassion, because I think we're all born with compassion, but I think that the compassion is by our environment and our parents and our lifestyles. Our compassion is hammered out of us from a very young age. I'll give you a quick example of what I mean by that, is that, say, for instance, you have a child who is, and I'm sure you may have heard this before, you have a child who's playing in the garden with a rabbit. And when she finishes playing with the rabbit, and she puts the rabbit in a cage, and then she goes indoors and sees her mother and says, "What's for dinner, Mummy?" And Mummy says, "Rabbit, darling." So you immediately introduce the child to a relationship with animals that is different from the relationship with her own species. And so that once you start that journey, once you start accepting the fact that animals are commodities and are at our disposal, and most importantly of all, you can eat them, once you start drilling that into a child's sensibility, they lose their natural compassion, and they start to develop kind of speciesism, as we would call it, and a non-dimensioned compassion. And I think dimensioned compassion, and by that I mean a compassion that is all-embracing, is what should be what our lives are all about. It's what directs our lives and what releases the love and the empathy that we have naturally within us, that is corroded for so long in our lives. And I find it every day thrilling to have got back in touch with my inner compassion and my love of other species on our planet. And so and all of this is directly related to choosing a plant-based lifestyle and a lifestyle that's based in kindness and compassion. Yeah.
It's like a starburst, right? It's like one awakening, then another, and then another, and then another, and then another.
Absolutely. It's fantastic. And also, I don't just feel more compassionate about animals. I feel more compassionate about people. I care about people. I don't care about people less because I care more about animals. I care about them the same. I think we all have.
I'm glad you said that, because there's a misconception. Oh, you care more about animals than humans. No, we care about everything, but we're talking and speaking out for animals because they're, being put in the background, and people are not listening to what they're saying or not understanding their language.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
Right.
And it shouldn't compete with the other, and one shouldn't be exclusive of the other. It should be all embracing, basically.
Correct. And I believe that veganism is a social justice issue.
Yes.
It's not really a diet. It's not solely an animal rights. I think it's a social justice issue because it impacts so many things. It impacts humans, the planet, the animals, our health,
Absolutely, yes. It's
racism, speciesism. I mean, it's just all encompassing.
I agree entirely. Absolutely. It's very broad.
Right.
It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle, and it's a very, very broad and embracing lifestyle.
Now, I know that I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's ahimsa, isn't it? To do no harm, basically.
Right. I was going to say, I know that you are involved in many projects helping animals and our planet, but talk to me a little bit about your For Life on Earth project.
Well, For Life on Earth is a charity for which I'm both an ambassador and a patron. And For Life on Earth is a science group who are working very hard to end the dreadful business of animal testing for human diseases, using animals as models for human diseases, which is a 90% plus failure and has been for however long it's been practiced. And so I'm part of a group that is trying to change the law on animal testing to bring people up to date with the failure of animal testing, because even the pharmaceutical companies and even the vivisectors admit that it fails 90% of the time. But it's a very, very good business for the people who are in it. It makes them lots of money. They get lots of funds, and but it is a total failure as a model for finding cures and predicting for human diseases. So I work every other day on campaigning for that, and I have a debate happening in the House of Commons on February the 7th, which is to bring, they're called the MBR Acres dogs. They're beagles in a facility in the countryside in London, and they breed 2,000 beagles a year to be tested on. And these poor little beagles, they use beagles because beagles are the most compliant and human-friendly dogs, and they are punished for that friendliness by being tested upon. And these poor puppies are force-fed gavage, which is force-feeding. They are force-fed chemicals which are put in a tube straight to their gut without any anesthetic or any pain relief at all. This goes on for 19 weeks and then they're killed. And it is so disgusting, and the results are negligible. So I'm trying to get them brought under the Animal Welfare Act, which means they won't be tested upon. And if that happens, I keep my fingers crossed, then that will then open the door to a bigger conversation about ending animal testing and showing the public that it doesn't work. We are all smoke screened by the science, and the usual thing is, well, are you going to choose your son or your daughter, your mother, your grandparents, or an animal? And what they don't say, do you want this testing on this animal may save your grandmother. What they don't tell you is that 90% of the time it hasn't even got a chance of saving your grandmother. And so I'm raising awareness to that as best I can, and it's going very well at the moment. So I hope that we achieve greater success with it. Yeah,
that's great, because that has to be brought out into the public. And because, like you said, there's a smoke screen. Oh, this is the way it's always been. We test on animals before we test on humans. However, if 90% is a failure rate, it means that you're really testing on humans anyway, because
exactly.
Those results are not true. So why not just let the animals be?
Yeah, and use everything that you can in terms of modern science, like organ on a plate, things like that, organ on a chip. And there's lots of things that can be done. You don't need animal testing, and animal testing actually holds back drugs that may help humans. So, and if you had any other business, like if 90% of all planes never took off and crashed, you'd stop using planes, wouldn't you?
You definitely would.
So that's one of the things that I'm very, very committed to. One of my great passions is Animals Asia, which is a charity that rescues bears from biofarms in Southeast Asia. I would think that's my favorite charity on the planet. They define to me the very meaning of animal rights. I'm very much, we distinguish between animal welfare and animal rights. I'm very much an animal rights person, just as I am very much a human rights person. You can't have human welfare without human rights, so you can't have animal welfare without animal rights as well. So, and Animals Asia defines for me the very meaning of animal rights in the way they rescue these bears and rehabilitate them. And so I'm passionate about that, and about 20 odd other charities. I'm also humorously known as the man who can't say no. So I get attached to a lot of different charities.
I have appreciated and enjoyed talking with you today. Any last words that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I would just say to, I'm sure your audience is probably vegan leaning anyway, but if anyone who's listening isn't vegan and is interested in it, I would say, do try it. If you can't make a major step, then just reduce your meat intake, have meat-free weekends, and just give it a try, because it's not as terrible as people say it is. It's absolutely wonderful. As we said in our earlier part of our conversation, it's so good for our spirit and good for our bodies. And it is, once you get into it, the most varied and exciting way of eating. So if you're thinking about it, give it a try.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of The Vegan Pulse. I am your host, Nancy Arenas. Remember to check out our website, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have a pulse, you have a purpose. Live vegan.